join me.
Hier. Hinsetzen hier?
Here. Who of you know Ann-Kristin?
Oh, no.
Achleitner. Who of you have heard of her?
Thank you.
Look at this. Look at this,
Thank you.
Ann-Kristin. You're a known person.
Not bad, yeah.
You're a famous person.
No.
You stand for success in business, in science, in many things. What is success for you?
I think if you look at successful people that you have in all the arenas in the world, it's about whether you call it intensity or whether you call it passion. I think in a way it's the same, that you really love what you're doing and you're intensely doing it, and curiosity. If you're not curious, you're not driven, you don't want to understand new stuff, and I think that's what drives you forward, so that you do things out of the normal.
Is success, can you hear me? Can you hear,
Yeah.
okay. Is success teachable?
No, I actually, this is one of the big questions if you have entrepreneurship at universities, you know, that they said, you know, so what are those Germans doing? Is it like a TÜV for entrepreneurs? I think the great thing when you're teaching is to help people find their own potential. That they suddenly feel they can do something that they didn't think before, they didn't believe in themselves, etc. And that's a great coaching part, but also the demanding part. And I had a great email this morning from a student that I coach, and she said, I was at Bits and Pretzels yesterday, she's studying political science, and it was an incredible, awesome day, and she said, and I listened to a speech about venture capital negotiation, and she said, this was so interesting, you know, I'm going to follow up on that. So that's about, you know, hearing it here, she felt that was interesting, and that might change her path, yeah.
Interesting. You have a long, long track record for teaching amazingly successful people. For example, at the European Business School, one of your pupils or students have been Philipp Schindler. There are many more. Do you see a certain pattern behind successful entrepreneurs, successful managers, successful startupists?
I think, for example, if you mention Philip, but also others, they have been passionate already when they're young. Very often you see that he was driven, he wanted to do new things. And I think at university, for example, at the EBS, where I was in the 90s, but also at the TU, the idea is that you have a great group of friends, which is much more important than the professors you have, is to have these colleagues that drive each other, and they also challenge each other. So I was happy enough to have been in ecosystems where also, yes, the university spent some time in finding exact that kind of personality. And then it's fun to work with them.
Interesting, Christine. You mentioned a great group of friendship or a great group of friends. What does friendship mean in this case?
I think they have two things. They love to spend time with each other. It's like, you know, you guys being here, liking to spend time at Bits and Pretzels, and that unites. And they had the same ideas. They discussed life, you know, long nights, same aspects. And by doing all of this, I think they created a pattern of trust. Because you know how the other person reacts, and that binds you together for life. I'm still very close to my friends from students' age. And I strongly believe that that trust and that comes through the time that you spend with each other is a very, very valuable thing. I think what we see today very often that you're not expected to do something with someone you know, is a lost possibility, because trust makes life so much easier in having to do with each other. And life's too short to spend it with people you don't like. That's another point, yeah.
I think trust is enormously important. Is there another component for being a good founder, a good success person? Is it, for example, courage?
I think courage is very important, and I think but what comes with it, there's always this belief that entrepreneurs will really look for risk, yeah? And there's very interesting studies that show that entrepreneurs don't like risk any more than other people like risk. They just feel they can manage risk because they believe in themselves. They have this idea that they can shape their own destiny a bit more, and if you have that, it's easier to have some courage to step out of the norm. And I think a lot of the people that are entrepreneurs have very good careers and some standard career patterns, and to leave all this behind and say, I start something new, that is courage.
Are German startups more less courageous than, for example, Silicon Valley startups, or do they have a different ecosystem than we have in Silicon Valley or in Israel? What do you think?
I think being specialized on entrepreneurial finance, I won't surprise you that much that I say, first of all, German investors are less courageous. I think if we talk about the German startup scene, to think of the German investor scene is very important, and it isn't. It's not only a startup issue, it also comes with the big German DAX companies. I mean, if you look to what amount they're owned by international investors and to what small amount they're owned by German investors, you feel, you know, this really has to change. That we put our money into our own industry, and we should do that into the startup industry too. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How can we change this? What are the parameters for this change? What could it be?
I mean, first thing, talking about stuff is good, but then also, I mean, for example, if you look at how investment banking was built in the 90s, I think it does help if we have the big American investors coming over, that they send a very strong signal, what we've seen, that they invest into German, European startups, and they grew a kind of industry, and that's why it's important to attract them. And there are a lot of them in Munich too, and then the industry will grow in itself.
Yes, I also believe this very much. But I see, if I'm in the States to find some speakers for DLD, I see a totally different culture of failure. Failure is an easy thing in the States or wherever. Not here. Why is it so?
Most probably that has to do with the German mind too, that we are a bit negative. If you look at the business press, you know, a lot of it is about failure, bad news, whatsoever. But it also has to do with the fact that if someone for once has been successful, the news you have about that person being unsuccessful for once is much bigger. And I think that's really a pity, because talking about courage also, it's so important that you do something new, and it would be so important for people who have been successful in the standard economy to go out and work with startups. And if they work with startups, it's clear that, you know, you have a failure once in a while, but that this isn't scandalized. So I think that that too is something that has to change here. You know, the interaction between the old industry and the interaction of people who are experienced here with young people, for both sides benefits.
Ann-Kristin, you see so many founders and you know so many old companies. How would you describe a founder's personality towards an old manager, company owner from the centuries before?
Independent. I mean, the first thing that would come to my mind is dynamic. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But we did studies on the first wave of founders of, which is very old for you guys now, but the Neue Markt, when that was founded, because, you know, we do have those founders, and we analyzed why did they create their business in the first place. And the big thing was independence, wanting to influence your own life, be your own master. So the people I see who strive for that are highly independent, and also willing to go other paths that ask why is that different, and so and this has changed enormously. I mean, if I say we have more startups, people come up and say, yes, statistics show we have less, and they're right. But I think in the innovative startup scene, you know, we've seen a big boost, you know, the last years, and I'm happy to see that.
And I think it's changed a lot here. Meanwhile, in the beginning, the startups were all by themselves. Meanwhile, we see a lot of corporations who are funding new startups. And I think Munich is one of the hubs of the VCs and VCs and startups out of big companies. How do you see Munich in the moment?
Oh, I was so happy this morning when I read Handelsblatt saying, you know, that, you know, the size of Bits and Pretzels shows what's going on in Munich, because it was, and this will help. Yeah, I also think Bits and Pretzels help, because even, you know, perception is reality, because you're here, you show there's a scene. I was a bit sad the last years to see that, you know, there was so much talk about Berlin all the time, rightfully. I mean, it's great what Berlin did, but we have so many tech startups here with the big universities in the south, research institutes, that because that is less media driven, it was less discussed, and I'm a strong believer in Munich, and I'm happy that it shows.
I'm also a strong believer of Munich. I think Munich is amazingly cool. Who of you is from Munich and is doing a startup? I hope next year there will be many more. Who of you is from a science profession? Many more. Who is an artist? Only 2. That's far too few. So what do we need to create the next Silicon Valley?
I think we should create a great Munich and not a next Silicon Valley, because everyone in the world wants to create a next Silicon Valley. And I think we're really good if we do it our way. Yeah.
Yeah. Bravo.
Yeah. And we're much better. And and the most fascinating thing is, if you talk about us Germans being always a bit self-skeptical, and I include myself there, you know, we always speak about what is not that good here. I mean, if you speak to those American venture capitalists, founders, whatsoever, who set up their places here, and there's some European headquarters, for example, if you look at Palantir or other things, you know, and if you listen to them talking about Munich, you know, that is so good, and I always wonder why, you know, we discuss that more, why they would come here. They say we have great people, and between you and me, I think our educational system is so much valuable that everyone can get the education he wants, and we should reflect more on that. And I would want to see more, you know, Americans coming here.
Yeah, true. Ann-Kristin, you're not only a great teacher, a great entrepreneur, a great connector, but you're also, and I really want to
you have to
hear
be careful,
more.
Otherwise I'm a great failure with the next thing I do.
And she's a great friend, by the way. But she's also known for her mentorship. You are the mentor of many young persons, young founders, young managers. What is necessary for being a good mentor?
To love people.
To love people?
To love people, yeah.
What is love people?
That you like to be together with people, that you're you're happy to see them develop. But the older I get, also a big amount of openness that, for example, I also have to fight with. When I was a young professor, I was much closer age-wise to my students. And yes, I feel now that I've been a professor for more than 20 years, there is an age difference now. I'm a bit closer to my assistants. And you have to understand all these new business models, for example, and ideas. And I'm struggling myself with that aspect. So it does keep you young. But I also think you have to be very careful in not giving advice that is outdated.
How do you find your mentees?
It's both. I mean, in very funny situations, sometimes I meet people that I like, others have been students, I meet them somewhere. The only thing that some personal contact somewhere, the only thing that I never do and that I really don't like is people who just write you an email and say, look, I read you're so networked, you know, what about coaching me, you know, when there's which happens rather often, yeah, or I'm a woman, so if there's no personal link and I haven't met that person before, that's something that I don't do, yeah.
Ann-Kristin, what does work-life balance mean for you?
Something all of us are working on, but I would doubt this work-life balance idea. I strongly, you know, that those are two different things, because it would mean that work is not part of your life, you know. And my idea was that you're incredibly lucky when in your work, like coaching people that you love, or so you too, you do something that means something to you, that is important to you, and you spend the time with the people that you like. I always said, you know, for example, the old days when I was McKinsey or so, I said, if you work in the evening, you do it with people, you know, that you would otherwise be in a bar with, that you really like and just like to spend time with. This makes a difference. But doesn't mean I don't go to bars. But yes, I think it's very important to have your personal life. But I think the whole idea that work is not life means you choose the work for the wrong reasons.
I think this is one of the things which connects us.
Yeah, if you have the choice, let me be careful.
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, obviously, if I say the work for the wrong reason, I mean, we all have to live work to survive, I mean, to earn something, that's not too short. But I mean, if you have any choice in what you're doing, you should strongly follow your passion or your stomach, or you ever call that. Yeah.
I agree, totally agree.
Yeah.
I think it's so important that you find the things you love and you're good in, and then work-life balance is not necessary anymore because you're so driven. I think founders are, for me, the sign of a good founder is that he's driven.
Yeah.
He's driven like you. If I'm talking with you, she is such an energetic person, as you can see right now,
I haven't
and driven
moved
by her mission.
Yeah.
Can you say
But
something
sorry
about
for
your mission?
interrupting you. But about the mission. But sorry for interrupting you, which is very impolite. But there's something.
No.
If you have young founders, that I think is important. That I also read. If we define success, I think in the end, success, like work-life balance, also is an holistic thing. How do you feel as a person? And a lot of people take decisions when they're young, where they go for business success, where it doesn't fit, which doesn't follow what they really want to do. And then they find out midlife that they're not happy. They might be successful in business life, but not be happy. And I would consider that a non-success too. Sorry, but I think that's important if we discuss that, what it means when you're young. Yeah.
So too. What's your mission, Ann-Kristin? Do you have a mission?
No, I would not. I think my main mission is not in the business world. It's my family, it's my kids. Yeah, that would be the only mission I would really have. Yeah.
I can understand this.
Yeah, and you have the same. You have the same mission. Yeah.
Are there any questions to the two of us?
What would you expect?
We don't believe you.
No.
Alessia Zinska, what's your mission, and what do you want to ask us? Come, stand up.
You get my micro.
I once read an article that, you really care about your friends and you have like long established relationships, and that you always send your friends a book package from Amazon. So I wondered, what kind of lecture you would recommend and which book you should really have in your library, and what I should really go after.
Yeah. I love books, out of curiosity, and I love books to read between totally different things. I would totally astonish you with the book I'm reading right now. It's a very good new biography of Karl Marx. Yeah, that surely is, but that is. That's a consequence of that. I'm in the jury of the book competition. I read the book half through, and I want to read the rest. And these, I think, the unexpected does help you there. For example, with Karl Marx, I think this whole question: if we go into the new era, what does capital mean? I'm not a Marxist, obviously, and Marx wasn't a Marxist even. But what does it mean, the new social order? Yeah. I sometimes read books on something totally different. When we were being prepared, I discussed with Steffi the book Helix of Ellsberg, because we were discussing CRISPR-Cas9. Yeah, I think as long as you read, and I sometimes read books with close friends at the same time, and then we discuss the books, what we feel about the books, which is also something that is interesting.
You have to write that one down for me.
Okay. Yeah.
I think, following this conversation, one of the points which were very interesting to me is that you mentioned friendship. Friendship as a recipe or as an advice for being successful. I think with this, we really can, I learned this. I'm a friend of friendship, of course. I don't like networks so much, but friendship is a very important factor in my life. And I hope this advice of Ann-Kristin give you a good start for your professional life or ongoing. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.